This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it's time for Your Purpose, Your Power, A Journey to Authenticity. This podcast is in conjunction with Cleveland 13 News. So we are following a much larger audience, which I think is really important when you have a guest like I do today. My guest, Rachel, and I hope I do not mess up your last name, Fulginiti.
Fulginiti.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, Fulginiti.
You were close. You did
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Well, I usually mess up names, so you know, at
It's
least
not
I,
an easy one.
at least I was on course with yours. Um, when I met Rachel on podmatch.com, there were a number of things that I saw in her bio that made me realize what a good conversation this would be today. Because so many of us are living our life for parents, siblings, best friends, spouses, children, extended family. Oh, and then there's work. And some days we wake up and we go, like, is this a life I'm supposed to be living? And I know I went through that. And that's one of the reasons I do podcasting and life coaching, because I want people to understand that for all we know, we're only here on this earth one time.
Mhm.
And I'm not going into religious beliefs because that doesn't make a difference. Because for right now, this is where we are. And if we're not happy with ourselves, the people around us aren't going to be happy. So, Rachel, take us on your journey. What got you to where you are today in the work you're doing?
Sure. I really appreciate, first of all, thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to get to talk with you today. Um, I I've been somebody who my whole life, it was really important to me that I followed what was in here and what I needed to do. And so what that looked like when I was younger is moving to New York City after college, pursuing an acting career. After duking it out there for 10 years, I moved to LA. And when I moved to LA, I moved out there for my career. I thought that was the next step. I had all this experience on stage. Now I'm going to do movies and I'm going to become a star. That was the original plan. Um, but what I really wanted to do was work in my chosen profession, honestly. But I met this amazing guy 30 days after I moved out there. And a year and a half later, he was my husband. It was just one of those things where we felt like we had already known each other. And the second time we were hanging out, he looked at me, we were laughing about something. He goes, "It's so good to see you again." And then he was like, "Whoa. I just said it's so good to see you again as if you were my old friend from high school." And I was like, I know
Yeah,
exactly what you mean. So, so he was a musician. I was an actor. We were pursuing our dreams. And kind of both of us were the ones in our family who left the nest he was from Boston, I was from New York. And there we were in LA making our dreams come true. So for a long time, we just did that, and it was amazing. He was on the road with bands. I was doing performances. I also was had a little stint with a band where I was touring, and what happened was when we got to, I was starting to approach 40. I was about 37. And I started thinking, if we're gonna have kids, like we should probably start thinking about that soon. Yeah, we should start thinking about it soon. He was kind of like, yeah, whatever. Like, if you want to do that, that's cool. So we sort of played it like that for a while. We just sort of was like, let's just, just see what happens. And well, lo and behold, nothing happened. We, um, stopped using protection and we just didn't get pregnant. A year. Okay. A year and a half, 2 years. Okay. Now I'm starting to get really close to 40 and I'm really starting to feel it. Um, and again, like I just want to say, I wasn't the person who had always thought like I have to have kids, and
yeah,
I didn't. I wanted to do career. I really did. I wanted to do career, but I always thought in the back of my mind that I would have kids. I just sort of assumed that I would have kids. And so then when that wasn't happening, I got really fixated on it because I was the person who always made everything happen in my life. Whatever I wanted to do, I went for it. I wasn't going to hold back. So I started taking my temperature every morning. I did everything right. I ate perfectly. I, stopped drinking. Did all of the things, like anything you can imagine. Nothing happened. It didn't work out. So, started getting really frustrated, dropped everything, was doing acupuncture, got pregnant. Wow. Okay. This has been a journey, but I can see now this is what was meant to happen. And now I'm going to have this amazing pregnancy and, all of this stuff. Lost that pregnancy, sadly. Getting older, getting older. Turns out we try IVF twice after that, doesn't work. At this point, we're looking at this has been going on for 5, 6 years now. So this is I'm getting older. It is not fun. And there's a biological clock that's ticking. That was the first time that I realized, this is the only thing that you can't just do. If you want to become a doctor at 50, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hard road, but you can do that. With having children, biologically anyway, it isn't like that. And so, yeah, it was a very, very emotional and very, very difficult time, but it led us to looking at adoption. And we, at this point, we were in super debt. We were just in crazy debt. I didn't want to keep going into debt. Adoption was expensive. And international adoptions were not looking good. Like a lot of the countries were starting to not allow people to even do that, or there might be an age limit. So we started looking domestically. And again, it turns out like, wow, that could get really expensive. So we went very, very cautiously. I kept having this thought and this feeling that, there's got to be, I think there might be a child that's already here for us, and we've got to connect with that child. Like I feel it. I feel that we're meant to have a family. We can't just let this go. Like we've got to keep pursuing this. And so we went to an orientation scared to death. We're like, maybe not, because of the risks involved. When you're doing fostering to adopt, it's really, there's no fostering to adopt. It's really fostering until it's an adoption case.
Okay.
So, right. So the goal is always reunification with the birth family. And that is because that's what's best most times for the child. If that can happen, it's it's important to have that happen. But there are cases where that can't happen, like in the case with our child. So we connected with our child. And this was after I would say it was like a year of me. We took the classes and then we would put on the brakes again, and then we would go gingerly go into it. And then at one point, I was actually listening to Rob Lowe's autobiography on it was his first one, in my ears. I was listening to the audiobook, and he was talking about, if you allow fear to stop you from doing things, you will never taste the most amazing parts of your life. You've got to go for it, even if you're scared. So I was terrified of losing a child, of having a child placed in our home, and then after all of this, having them taken away. And I finally was like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do it for the child. We have to put our own wants aside. We do this for the child. If it's meant to be, if this child is meant to be in our forever family, they will be. And if not, well, then we just did a really incredible thing. And that was what was meant to be for our highest best and for that child's highest best. So that was it in a nutshell.
Wow. So as I'm listening to your story, there's many of us who have had trouble getting pregnant.
Mhm.
Now, I was married early on and easily got pregnant with my first husband. It was
Mhm.
like, we're going to get pregnant tonight. Ah, guess what?
Wow.
Uh, but we soon got divorced. I met my current husband, and we at first said we weren't going to have any children. It was okay. I had my son, and he was a stepdad, and that was wonderful. But then we started realizing we too wanted to have another child. And we went through all the fertility things, just like you. It was
Yeah.
like, I got pregnant so easily the first time. What's wrong with me? And I took it upon myself.
Yeah.
And having a miscarriage is the most devastating thing, especially when you're trying to have a child.
Yeah.
But I give you kudos for going forward with fostering, because it has to be the most, it's rewarding, but it's got to be the most difficult situation. You're always looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
You know, this may be best for this child to go back and be reunited with his mother, maybe his mother and father, if lucky. But this child is part of me now.
Yeah.
So, did you have any tools that were provided to you by fostering classes that taught you how to go through the ups and downs?
It's a great question. And sadly, the answer is there isn't that much of that. It's sort of like they lay out the scenario and it's like this is what you're signing up for. So you sort of have to find it within yourself to be able to do it or to not be able to do it. For me, I am a I have a very, very strong spiritual life and connection. I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. And so for me, it was a daily practice of connecting with my higher power and sharing that fear and saying like, I need help with this. I don't know if I can do this. I need you to walk with me on this and help me through this. And it was also a practice of living in the moment. Like I got a master class in being here now, like just being present now. We are together right now. There is nothing wrong here. Everything is awesome. We're together. Be here now. The truth is that tomorrow isn't promised to any of us, whether you're fostering or whether you're walking down the street. Anything could happen at any moment. So I just got really present to that and to look at the present moment as a gift and just be there. Don't go into the future because you're not going to find serenity there, you know, and don't go into the past because there's nothing there for you either. It's like just be in this moment. And that's kind of how I got through it.
And it's not easy for many people because we hear those voices. Um, I took a course a couple years ago about being intentional. And for the first couple weeks of the course, I basically fought with the leader. It's like, I hear what you're saying, but I've got these voices on my shoulder and they
Oh,
won't
yeah.
stop. And she said to me, they won't stop or you won't let them stop.
Mm-hmm.
And at first I got really tight and angry and I said, well, I don't want to hear them. And she said, then don't hear them.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
said, how do I do that? She said, we each do it differently. And that was my breaking point. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so you can't tell me how to do it because we all do it differently.
Yeah.
But you're telling me I can do it. And
Right.
she just said, if you want to. And that was the key. And that's really what started to turn me into doing coaching because I realized I've been fighting this my whole life. I
Mm-hmm.
hear my mother here, I hear my father here,
Yeah.
and I'm doing what I'm hearing
Mm-hmm.
and realizing at the end of the day, I didn't do anything for me. And so I started closing off those sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And yes,
Hmm.
they do seep in.
Sure.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to tell our listeners that, it's never going to happen,
Right.
but
Right.
you can control it. And being in the now
Hmm.
can be an incredible gift you can
It
give.
is. It is. It's an incredible gift, and it actually helped with the pandemic as well, because once the pandemic hit, I think our daughter was about 3 at that point. Um, that was it was really frightening. I don't know if we all remember because we sort of just went into a regular life and whatever, but like it was so triggering for me personally and so frightening, and I didn't feel safe, and I had this small child to protect, and it was just really it did a lot to me underneath the surface, and I use that practice there too. It's like we are okay right now. We are okay, you know?
Well, and we can worry about the past. We can bring all
Mhm.
those things
Yeah.
forward. I did that for the first 60 years of my life. Anytime I got frightened, to be like, oh, that's because this happened when I was 5 years old.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
but you're not 5 years old anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So you started fostering your daughter. How
Hmm.
long were you in the fostering before you could adopt her?
Sure. So the entire thing was about a 2.5 year process. Um, the parental rights were terminated. So with my daughter, there was never any contact with her biological family. They never came forward. And so you would think that that would be okay, like it happens really quickly. It still took about 2 years for those rights to be terminated. One of the interesting things was because the biological parents were homeless, it was very difficult to serve them the papers. They didn't know where they could serve the papers to these people, and they have to be notified. You're terminating their parental rights, and so it took 2 years to get to that point, to the termination of parental rights, and rightly so. And then it was about 6 months of just waiting, which was like, so we had waited 2 years, and then we thought, oh, we're gonna, parental rights are terminated, and we're signing this intent to adopt, and it should happen like, next month, right? No, it still took 6 months just for the paperwork it has to go to Sacramento, and then it has to be signed off on, and then it has to come back. And so I remember being so frustrated at one point, being like, I will drive to Sacramento. I will get this signature. I will bring it. And they were like, no, you will not, because you're not allowed to do that. So it was again just a lot of waiting, a lot of acceptance, like acceptance of the system and how the system works. And instead of trying to fight against that, which is just an impossible, you will not win that fight. You can't win that fight. So the only thing you can do is keep your own side of the street clean and just go with what is and try to be joyful. I would try to send love and light to like everyone involved, like the judges and the lawyers and the people in Sacramento signing the papers, just sending that out there, because I knew that like whatever I was resonating is going to grow, and I had to stay in the light, so to speak.
So, did you give up your career when you took your daughter in?
That's such a great question. I did not. It was hard. It was difficult because um, I had worked so hard to get where I was. So I started out as an actor, but when I came to LA, I ended up finding voiceover and audiobooks. And that was like my lane. Like it just suddenly the thing about what I looked like and all the things I couldn't control were out of the picture. It was just me and my voice and my creativity, and I loved it. And it was the greatest career in the world. So I didn't want to give that up. But I also didn't, and I don't recommend this. I did not change anything for the first couple years. I just sort of did my life exactly how I was doing it, but now with a baby. She came to us when she was 3.5 weeks old, and she had some health challenges. Um, And I don't recommend doing that, but I thought I didn't know how to prepare myself in my life. When you I think when you have a child biologically, you have those 9 months to just get with the program and you see your body is changing and but with foster to adopt is very strange because it's like you don't have a baby or a child and then the next day you do. And so it took me several years to realize like, wow, this I'm not going to be able to hold this pace the way that I was previously. When she was a baby, I could sort of put her in the booth with me if she was sleeping or something, and I could do my work. But toddler is like a whole different scenario. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we all learn that. We
Yeah.
wonder how they go from this quiet little baby that you can rock in your arms to this um, daredevil that is running around and
Yeah. You have to keep them
but
safe. Yeah.
but those are the things that when you want a parent, you find a way to adapt
Yeah.
to. How is your family during all this? Because
Mm.
I know when I got pregnant with my youngest, um, I was 40 years old, and everybody around me was whispering, "Are you crazy? Why are you doing this? You already have a
Yes.
son, you know, and there's a 15-year difference." And it was like, well, that's okay. I
Hmm.
knew that was okay. My husband and I knew that was okay. But 6 years, when he turned 6 years old, he was identified as being on the spectrum.
Hmm.
And then I got all this negativity. You had him when you were 40. Why did you do that? You
Oh.
infertility,
Hmm.
and on and on.
Yeah,
And
yeah. But it was your fault, quote
yeah,
unquote, that he was neurodivergent. Yeah.
it
Yeah.
took me a long time, a very long time, to finally say this was meant to be this way. And it
Absolutely.
turns out um, my son is very independent. He lives away from home. He has a career. Um, and I believe, again, not realizing it, we lived in the moment with him. If,
Hmm.
if he was having, as we called them, meltdowns from being on the spectrum,
Hmm.
we dealt with it at the time.
Yes.
When that meltdown was over, we went on to whatever was next.
Right.
Um, and I didn't do that with my oldest because I didn't know how to live in the moment. I didn't
Right.
see the changes. And
Yeah.
so parenting is different with each child. But
Yeah.
what was the outer dynamics when you brought this child into your home?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. So, because we were in LA, my whole family was on the East Coast, all New Yorkers. They weren't involved at all. I know that like my mother, when I first shared with her what we were doing, she was like terrified for me and didn't want me to get hurt and like didn't want me to do it because of that. And I was like, Mom, I'm not asking. I'm this is what we're doing. And she got it. I guess my point in saying that is I didn't really have to deal too much with the family because it was all
Sure,
from far away. So they may have been talking amongst themselves about this, but they didn't say anything to me. Now, I will share that about 3 months into it, my niece, who is also my goddaughter, was getting married. And we really wanted to go. So we got permission from the judge to bring the baby, as you do when you're fostering. You can't take them out of state without that permission. And we brought her to the wedding. And I was really, really nervous and protective of her because I was like, if one person says anything negative, or I'm going to put them in their place. Like, this is no, this is our family. We're not doing that. And I have to say, I was so incredibly blown away by how openly and warmly my family received this baby and just as if it was the most natural thing in the world, did not say anything negative, did not act strangely, were just so affectionate, and I was so grateful for that. I didn't know what to expect, and I was really pleasantly surprised. Now, we after we adopted my daughter, um, we took a break, and then about, well, I guess it would have been 4 years later, we decided to do it again. Now, that one, I think people were like, she's crazy. And I get this all the time because I am now 54 years old with a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old, special needs on the spectrum. Um, and so, yeah, a lot of people think I'm nuts for that aspect of it, especially. And I think a lot of people were like, why couldn't you just leave it alone? Like, you got this one amazing miracle child, and like, can't you just be happy with that? And the truth is, I just felt like there was another child that was meant to be in our family, and he came to us, and again, they may have been talking amongst themselves, but no one said anything to me. Everyone just expressed joy, and that was the right thing to do.
Absolutely. So now you have two precious children. They
hmm
came through as fostering and you adopted. Do the children know that they are adopted? Do they understand what adoption is?
They do. They do. It was really important to my husband and I to bring them up with that knowledge. I have personal experience with like a good friend of mine who found out that her brother was adopted when he was like close to 30. And it was just incredibly, incredibly horrible for him and for her, but certainly also for him. And I was just clear after doing the research and attending the classes that like it's the best thing is just for them to grow up, having this normalized for them, and that it's just a fact. It's a fact of your life. It's part of your unique story. Everybody has a unique story, and this is yours. And so I think with the 4-year-old, he's still grasping it, like he's not as on top of it. He came to us at 3 days old. But we certainly have adoption books that we've had for both of our children, and we talk about it and we show pictures. This was the day you were adopted. And, we just want to normalize that.
And I think that's extremely, extremely important. When I was 9 years old, my parents sat my brothers and I down. I'm the youngest.
hmm
And my mother said, we're thinking about bringing in a little girl to be part of our family. And I was 9. I
hmm
was the princess. And
hmm
I looked at my mother and I said, why would you do that? And she said, well, then you could have a sister because your brothers have each other. You now could have a sister. But it wasn't explained to me
Uh-huh.
anyway, other than they were going to bring this child in. And I ruined it for the whole family. I said, absolutely not. And my
hmm
parents actually listened to me, which,
Mm.
you know, to this day, I still feel a little guilt because there probably was some little girl out there who needed a family.
hmm
Um, and my parents never really brought it up much in the years past,
hmm
but it's always stuck with me.
hmm
And I wasn't sure if my parents were bringing in this child for me to have a sister.
hmm
Was she going to take my place? I was 9 years
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
And so, I share with people that if you're not sure how to communicate this with your children,
hmm
get the resources because I
Yeah.
think that's extremely important. Um, I have a niece and a nephew who are both adopted, and they
hmm
were informed of this when they were very, very little.
hmm
Um, my niece has found her biological family.
hmm
Um, my nephew has chosen he doesn't care.
Right.
He was brought up fine. He's got a family, and that's all he needs.
Yeah.
But at least it was explained to them, and
Yes.
he adapted to it. Um,
Yep.
are there any special books or resources that you can share with our listeners?
Oh, let's see. I can't off the top of my head think of the books that we have. Um, There, I can, why don't I send you a list after
That
this?
would be
Because
great.
I don't want to say the wrong title off the top of my head, and
Fine.
but I'm happy to share those resources absolutely with you. Um, yeah, I think being open about it. Listen, it's not going to be easy, especially as they get older and they want to know more of the story, the why behind it. That's not going to be easy. But what I hope to do is have it be an ongoing conversation, not just like a one and done conversation, and to tailor it to the age that they are and what kind of information they can metabolize at that time, if that makes sense.
So when you found out that your daughter was on the spectrum,
Hmm.
was that what, how old was she at the time?
Sure. So she was, I want to say 3 or 4, like 3.5, 4. And the way that it happened, and I'll always be so grateful, it was the pandemic had just started. And or actually, I guess it had been going on for a while, and we were really wanted to get her into some kind of a preschool. And so a friend of mine told me about this Montessori preschool that was doing everything outdoors, and it was in LA, so you could do that, and
Yeah.
it, year round. And so we were like, great, sign me up. So we signed her up, and about 2 weeks later, the owner of the school contacted us and said, "Hey, I'm just noticing a few things about Izzy, and I would like to, if you're open to it, I would love to discuss those things with you." And so we said, sure. And she, mentioned these observations that she was having about her difficulty in connecting with the other children. And like she wants to connect, but she doesn't know how. And they were things that we had observed too, but we didn't know at that time. We just didn't know much about it at all. So she recommended that we could go get an assessment. And I'm so glad that we did. I think a lot of families maybe feel scared about it and they don't want to do it or something, and I think maybe part of it is that because she wasn't my biological child, we didn't have that thing of like there's nothing wrong with my child. It was like I knew she was coming from trauma, she came from a traumatic background. We don't have much information about her birth family. Let's find out. Let's find this out. So we went to a pediatrician that specialized in diagnosing um, children and particularly girls. Her whole thing was that she wanted to diagnose girls earlier because typically girls aren't diagnosed until they're a little bit older, like middle school. And it's very, very difficult for them to, what's wrong with me and why don't people want to be friends with me or whatever that is. So she was sure enough diagnosed, and in my typical fashion, like I went about like educating myself and making sure I knew all the stuff and following especially autistic adults and learning about their lived experience and became very aware that again, just like with the fostering, this is a part of her story, and we want her to own this and to be comfortable with it. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a brain difference. That's all it is. It's just a difference. And it's actually can be a superpower. And she is so amazing. And I would not change her for the world. Like she is just so unique, so creative. Like I'm sure you feel that way about your son too. So yeah, I recommend just get the testing, educate yourself and bring it out into the open.
Yeah, my son used to go to different grade schools and talk to the kids.
Mm,
And, he struggled in high school because there were bullies who
sure.
knew he was on the spectrum. And even though he was mainstream
Hmm.
90% of his time,
Yes.
this was still their excuse to pick on him.
Yep.
And one little boy, I remember asking him, one of the first conversations was, if somebody waved a magic wand and you could get rid of your autism, which,
Hmm.
and my son stood there and didn't skip a beat. He said, absolutely not. That's who I am.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And I saw from that point forward, he really chose to be at his best when he could. And occasionally he would sit me down and say, Mom, I can't be at my best right now.
Yeah.
You can get mad at me if you want, but I'm just not at my best.
Yeah.
As he matured and he understood some of the changes that were going on in him, he learned to adapt. And like I said, 6 years ago, he came to us and he said, I got a job in New York and I'm going. I said, well, that's great. Are you really ready? And he goes, we'll find out. Now, that job did not really work out, but it wasn't because of him. It was because of the people that he was working with who knew his background, because he's very open.
Yeah.
They chose after 30 days, we don't want to deal with this. And he said, you know what? If you don't want to deal with it, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, you should let them fire you.
So you could collect
Financially better.
Yeah.
But again, he needed to be him, and that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But he has totally grown from that. And the reason I'm sharing this is we all have labels to some degree. Okay. And those labels will help us out in certain circumstances. But we can't judge people by their label.
Yeah.
Because we are all different. And you chose, you wanted a family, you were going to find that family in the best way that you could. You weren't going to let career or age tell you can't do this.
Right.
And I applaud you and your husband, because I'm sure there were people, snickering behind your back.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of it is because they're jealous. Hey, look what you're doing. Why didn't I ever think of doing that?
Yeah.
So how are you helping individuals now? Because I know you are.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I became so passionate about the whole foster care and adoption space after going through all this time of my life, interfacing with it. And at the time, I didn't have a whole lot of support from other people who had gone through this. I just didn't know anybody else who did that. And so I decided to start a podcast. I already know how to speak on mic. I already know how to do all the technical stuff. So it seemed like a natural fit for me. And what I really wanted to do, my initial idea was like, I want to share inspiring foster care and adoption stories, because there's so many and there's such wonderful stories. And we don't hear that much about them. We hear about all the negative things about it all the time. And there's certainly a lot of that too. I'm not discounting that. But it was really important to me to bring this into the open that, yeah, there's also like amazing stories, amazing families. And so I thought, if I can share this and if I can inspire someone who might be on the fence about it, like has thought about it, but are afraid to do it, we can start with me and I share my story, and my husband comes on the second episode of the first season. Um, if we did it, you can do it. And it doesn't always work out the way you think it's going to. It can be really circuitous, but I absolutely believe that in the end, if that's in your heart, you can find the family, your forever family. I just believe that. So it's super important to me to just share that message, inspire people. And yeah, we're launching season 3 tomorrow. So that's exciting, December 16th. And we have a whole new season. I recommend, if listeners are interested, I do recommend going back and also listening to other episodes, because it starts to just, again, it's that normalization thing. It makes it a little more normal. People have actually done this. They've walked this road. Um, I'm also going to begin mentoring people. So if people are interested in that, they can contact me through the website, and then I'm happy to have a consultation and we can take it from there.
I love it. And all that information will be in the show notes, including this list of books that Rachel's going to send us, which I'm really looking forward to, because if we can help just one person, we have made an impact with this podcast. So
Yes.
thank you so much for being with us, and enjoy the cold and snow in New York. I'm staying in the house today. I'm not going out. Have a great day. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for your beautiful work in the world.
Thank you.
Take care.